you have a job and you are, I don't know, who's washed dishes by hands? I know we have dishwashers. But growing up, that was part of the task, washing dishes by hand. You talk to parents back in the day and they would say, yeah, I got a dishwasher, those two boys right there. So I remember being there for hours sometimes. Just, you go through the cups pretty quickly and the plates, but then there's the silverware. And you through those. And then comes the pots. Got stuff stuck on them. It's like, man, this is hard. For some reason, you've gotten through all that, and this is what's left, the pots. And so I remember just being there for hours, just not wanting to be there, but knowing I had to do a good job or else. When you get older, you don't have to do the dishes, and you got other little ones to do your own dishes, and you have the dishwasher there. You find that life becomes an intense round of dishes. Stuff that has to be done if you want to have a clean place and you want to eat, but it's not enjoyable. It's like you look at your kids now and they're complaining about loading the dishwasher. And I have a weird daughter because she wants to wash them by hand. We're like, no, you're not ready yet. Because we've seen how fast she does things, so they can't wash them too fast. I need to get clean. And so I began thinking about a couple of texts and thinking about one of the t-shirts that I've had. This t-shirt, this young man gave me this t-shirt, well, I had to buy it, but it says, no start, no finish. Make the commitment. And so most of us, if you're not a perfectionist, you can start. It's all right to start. You've seen people play jazz and saxophones, and you get the saxophone and you're just making weird noises because you have to wet the reed and then you have to put it on there. And I remember my first instrument was a trumpet, and after a couple of days, me and my brother's lips were twice their size for like 2 weeks. It's like trying to learn this thing. So it's good to start. I don't play the trumpet today. Saxophone was much easier. But I don't play that today either. But you can buy me one and I might pick it up again. But it's easy to start, but things begin to get difficult. So I began thinking about the Apostle Paul. And just looking at his book, this guy he just seems to be full of so much power and so much awesome spiritual advice. And so here's one of his things. 2 Corinthians chapter 4. He talks about the things that they're facing. So he starts out like this in verse 1. Therefore, since God in his mercy has given us this new way, we never give up. We reject all shameful deeds and underhanded methods. We don't try to trick anyone or distort the word of God. We tell the truth before God, and all who are honest know this. If the good news we preach is hidden behind the veil, it is hidden only from people who are perishing. Verse 4, Satan, who is the god of this world, has blinded the minds of those who don't believe. They are unable to see the glorious light So he's preaching and he's telling us all the good things, and he's talking about how Satan can't trump them. And then he gets down here. Verse 5. You see, we don't go around preaching about ourselves. We preach that Jesus Christ is Lord, and we ourselves are your servants for Jesus' sake. For God, who said, "Let there be light," in the darkness has made the light shine in our hearts, so we could know the glory of God that is seen in the face of Jesus Christ. This sounds awesome, but now he begins to ramp it up. He says, we are pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. We are hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down. We get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. Though suffering, our bodies continue to share in the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be seen in our bodies. Yes, we live under constant danger of death because we serve Jesus, so that the life of Jesus will be evident in our dying bodies. So we live in the face of death, but this has resulted in eternal life for you. This is awesome. This guy has been beaten. He's been made for dead so many times. He's been stoned. He's been kicked out of town. And it seems as if nothing can faze this guy. Paul I have professors in undergrad who, Paul was the person they went to all the time. They talked about how intellectual and philosophical but scripturally sound he was. And the simplest words of Paul were usually the hardest things to digest. And it seemed as if Paul was invincible. Yeah, he had this tiff with Barnabas, where John Mark, he thought he was a punk, and he said, he can't do ministry with us. He's running with his tail between his legs. Paul was a hardcore believer. If he were around today, I don't know if we could cut it with him. He was that hardcore. He was fearless. He was focused. And as I look at people like that sometimes, I know people look at pastors like that, but I look at other people like that and think that they've got something. I need that. But then, if you keep reading in that same book, you're like, oh, there's some stuff that Paul doesn't like either. Look at 12. 2 Corinthians 12. He begins this, he's trying to correct people, and he begins by telling about all the stuff that he used to do. It says, this boasting will do no good. People were talking about we're this or we're that, and he said, this boasting will do no good, but I must go on. I will reluctantly tell about the visions and revelations from the Lord. I was caught up to the third heaven 14 years ago. Whether it was in my body or out of my body, I don't know. Only God knows. Yes, only God knows whether I was in my body or outside my body, but I do not know that I was caught up. But I do know I was caught up to paradise and heard things so astounding they cannot be expressed in words. Things no human is allowed to tell. That experience is worth boasting about, but I am not going to do it. I will boast only in my weaknesses. If I wanted to boast, I would be no fool in doing so, because I will be telling the truth. But I won't do it because I don't want anyone to give me credit beyond what they can see in my life or hear in my message, even though I have received such revelations from God. So to keep me from becoming proud, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger from Satan to torment me and keep me from becoming proud. 3 times I begged the Lord to take it away. I don't care who you are, where your status is in Christ, whether you feel like you're good or you feel like you're far away, there's something that you really want God to take away. I remember a couple of years ago, ministry life had gotten really tough. I remember one Friday being at home thinking, I'm not sure how I'm going to provide for my family because I'm not doing this no more. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm done. And God began to breathe songs into my heart and my mind, and eventually pointing me to some scriptures. And that was probably the most dynamic sermon I had preached here until that point. But I remember saying, God, this is what I told God. I said, God, you're asking stuff from me that I don't even have. I don't have what you want. So if you want it, you're going to have to give it to me. And Paul is in this place where he's done all these things, and God has favored him, but there's some stuff that God won't do for him. People speculate what it might have been. Was it his sight? Was it he had scoliosis? We don't know what he had. Maybe it was his eyes. Maybe it was this or that, but it was something that was plaguing him where he said, God, I can stand being persecuted, but I really need this. I can stand all this, but I really need this. Are you in that place where you're facing life and you're trying to connect with God, but there's that one thing or several things that you just need God to handle, but he doesn't seem to be handling? Anybody? I've got a couple of situations right there now happening in my own life where it's like, God, fix it. God, do this. God, do that. But I love this answer. This is so awesome. And we've heard it before, but there's something that I want you to hear fresh about it. So he asked God 3 different times in verse 8. And verse 9, each time he said, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. At first, it's like, what kind of answer is that? Until you realize how weak you are. My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. And here's Paul now. So now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me. Amen. That's why I take pleasure in my weaknesses and in insults, hardships, persecution, troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong. If we want to finish strong, then we've got to recognize that we are weak. If we want to finish this Christian race, if we want to get through the trial and difficulty, we have to acknowledge to ourselves, look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I can't do it. I can't do so many self-help books to correct this or that. They work for a month. If you're really disciplined, maybe 6 months. And then for those who are really gung-ho, it may be your way of life, but there's still this nagging thing inside of you. But when you acknowledge, I am weak, and I want God's power to rest in me, that's when you finish strong. And people begin to say, I don't know how you do it. You can say, it's Christ in me. Amen. I heard this one preacher talk about Gabriel. And he said that Gabriel wasn't like Lucifer. Lucifer is described as being made of gems. Today we talked about the New Jerusalem and all the layers and the streets of gold and this transparent, all stuff, but this guy had it built in him. And his windpipes were so exquisite that he could sing 4-part and 6-part harmony by himself. But Gabriel didn't have those kind of pipes. Gabriel's name actually refers to weakness. But when you read the Bible, Gabriel is one of the most powerful and dynamic angels out there. He surfaces in Daniel fighting Satan himself. Michael comes and helps him out. Then we hear from Gabriel later when he's announcing the birth of Christ, when he, through prophecy, is closing the dad's mouth because he didn't believe. You have Gabriel, this mighty angel, coming down when Christ is in the tomb, putting on brakes, shaking the earth, saying, your father calls you, and Jesus gets up. And God has given him so much power because Gabriel realizes that he's nothing. It's when we realize that we are weak and God is strong and that he loves us and we take his strength, then we're not only made perfect, but we can finish. Amen. Let's pray.